Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to introduce you to Chris, the inventor of the Sportsgrip Sidewinder.
Thank you, Gary. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Well, thank you, Chris. And we're going to have a series of questions here, and here's the first one. Can you tell us what inspired you to invent the first Sportsgrip Sidewinder?
I've been in the tree business for several years, and it's very tough to work, and hands are very important. And our business was a backyard tree business, meaning that we dealt with people whose backyards were fenced in, so we couldn't get any heavy equipment in there. So consequently, everything had to be done by hand, rope and saddle, and spikes, which is a tough way to go. So we needed to get our forearms strong enough to be able to work and not be afraid. You can't do anything in the tree if you're hanging on with both hands, so you got to have good strength for one hand to hold whatever your body weight and chainsaw while you're in the tree and get some work done at the same time. And one night after work, we're sitting around with a couple of guys drinking beers, and we decided we were trying to figure out a way to build the forearms stronger, get good hand strength. We came up with an idea that looked pretty good, so I jumped on it. I'm one of those kind of guys that like to build things, so I jumped on it and started putting it together. And I took it to my cousin, the Schwinn bicycle people, and they had a big manufacturing shop, and they made a prototype for me, which was the step in the right direction. It looked pretty good, and I can give you, this is what it looked like, but it had like handlebars, you know, and with the foam rubber handles, which worked out pretty good for the first one. And we used that for a while. We would take it to the bars with us and use it, show the people, and the people started using it as a microphone. They thought it was funny. But after a while, they started getting a workout on it, and eventually really enjoyed it and got a good burn out of it, which is important. And the guys started becoming, you know, much stronger and felt safer in the trees. My dad, he's in the marketing business. He also played basketball against the Globetrotters, you know, in his younger days. So he was a guy who was very athletic, and he got into golf, which is another game that's done with the hands. And he loved the product, so he started drawing up flyers. He was in the advertising business, so he got flyers and stuff like that, and we put them in magazines and started off in that direction. As time went on, I couldn't do both jobs at the same time, so we were doing 10 hours a day, 7 days a week in the tree business, so we let it just go to the side, and I let it sit there for quite a few years, and finally, after I retired from the tree business, I got back into it, and we started looking for different materials so the unit wouldn't squeak, and that took quite a while. There we went through all sorts of, you know, from leather to rubber to material, just to get the winder to run smoothly. That was our objective, without squeaking.
Okay, Chris, can you tell us about the moment you realized you had created something very special?
Well, after a while, we, you know, going to bars and giving it to guys, our friends, and the people who worked on the tree business, they found that it really worked. They were getting quite a burn off it and starting to enjoy it and get stronger at the same time, which was our goal originally in the first place. So it got spread mostly by word of mouth in the beginning, and increased as time went on. And some of the people that reached out were rehab started coming into view, which was something we hadn't thought about, and that kind of took over too, which was nice. And also guys in arm wrestling, they got a hold of it and they enjoyed it.
Now, next is, how has your personal philosophy shaped the way you built your business?
I built my business just like I did the tree business. I've always wanted to do things right. You know, I would spend extra time just to get the last branch off or whatever needed to be done. It was important to me to always do a good job. And that followed into the Sidewinder also. And I kept that same idea all the way through. And looking into different muscles to be exercised and how it was changed the shape of the unit and so that it would do proper muscle.
Chris, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced while developing Sport Grips?
The toughest part of Sport Grips was finding a product or a material that would allow the Sidewinder, when turning, not to squeak, and always to be smooth from forward to backward motion. That material was it took a while to discover, and we must have done 100 different materials until we finally came across one that actually worked properly and was smooth.
Now, can you share a story where something wasn't working properly and you almost gave up?
In my pursuit to find the right materials and the correct design to do what I intended and saw could be done, it took more time than I had to give to it because we were doing about 10 hours a day on the tree business. So I kind of set it aside, and there were quite a few years went by, and finally I retired from the tree business, and it gave me a chance to get back into what I really wanted to do, was to get the Sidewinder working properly with the right materials.
Well, that's neat, Chris. What kept you going?
Actually, I'm one of those guys that don't like to quit or don't like to get beat. So I kept sticking on this until I finally got the proper materials and design that I was looking for. Like in my younger days of arm wrestling, I wasn't fond of losing.
Well, Chris, you've been in the business for 15 years, the Sport Grip business. What would you say is the secret to your longevity?
My secret to longevity would be never giving up. I really liked the Sidewinder, and I wanted it to go forward with it. And I saw that it helped people out with some of their problems, and especially in rehab also. And I needed a good retirement program, and this was it.
Can you tell us what makes Sport Grips stand out from the other grip and forearm strength devices?
Yeah, Sport Grips is unique in the way that it's built, because it can maintain the same resistance in either position, forward or backwards, as many times as possible without the resistance changing. You get the same pressure through both sides. And also, it's the adjustment knob for changing the resistance is calibrated. So if somebody gets in between one of your workouts and changes their resistance, you can go back to the one that you did the day before.
Can you tell us why you chose to use anodized aluminum?
Yeah, we chose aluminum, first of all, because it's light, and we needed to keep the product from being way too heavy. And aluminum is a soft material, so we thought that anodizing that does a great job on aluminum by giving it lasting strength and durability.
Living north of Chicago in a rural area, Chris, how has that influenced your business practices?
I currently live on 5 acres right now, and there's a lot of maintenance with cutting of grass and weeds, and I have chickens and goats, and they keep me grounded and sane. And as long as I can get to the house before the coyotes get me, everything's cool.
Well, Chris, at 80 years old, what drives you to continue working and assembling these products all by yourself?
Quite frankly, the orders won't stop coming in.
Good reason. How do you want your customers to feel when they use Sport Grips?
I want them to feel that they made the right choice and the right decision on which products to buy. There's so many cheap plastic gadgets out there, and my mother always used to say, you know, you get what you pay for.
Chris, what is your vision for the future of Sport Grips?
For the future of Sport Grips, I hope passing the torch to someone who will continue to carry on the quality we're known for.
Can you tell us how you hope to be remembered in the fitness community with your customers?
I hope I can be remembered for a person who cares about quality and good products made in the USA, especially for helping others in the rehab industry.
What advice do you have, Chris, for young entrepreneurs who aspire to create a product that stands the test of time?
What I can say to you young entrepreneurs is don't quit. Don't ever stop chasing your dream. If one thing fails, try something else. If you have to do it 1,000 times until you get what you're after.
Finally, Chris, do you have a favorite story about how Sport Grips changed a customer's life?
Good question. I do. I went for a haircut where I usually go, and my barber was an older woman. Her name was Bobby, and while she was cutting my hair, she had a hard time lifting her arm up enough to cut onto the top of my head. And I asked her what was wrong, and she said, my arm is killing me. And I said, you know, I think I've got something that might help. And I gave her a Sidewinder, and we, finished the haircut. And about 3-4 weeks later, I went back to get a trim. And as I walked in the door, Bobby yelled out, "Hey, Chris, look at this." And she's waving her arm all over. And she's, smiling. And I went, "Oh my God, it worked. It fixed her arm." And she was so happy that she ended up buying another one for a friend of hers who had a similar problem.
Well, thank you very much, Chris. That was very informative and enlightening. Have you got anything else?
To give you an idea of the progression and how we went from the start to where we're at today, we started off with a steel tube and a wood center, steel and wood. And then from there, we went to the Schwinn company, which I had mentioned earlier, and that looked pretty good, but the handles didn't wear well. And then we had to go to the next one, which we started getting into aluminum, which is aluminum, this is aluminum, and just handles. It started looking better, I thought, and from there we went to a solid aluminum body. And we went with knurling across here for a good hand grip. And it's done like this. And this is the adjustment knob, and the harder you go with it, you twist this in, the harder it gets. And it worked out quite well. I had a great grip, and the grips didn't wear off, they weren't foam. And now finally, we got into, we liked the knurling so much, but we thought we'd put a pattern on it so that it could even grip better and look nice too. And it worked the same way, like this, and adjusting the pressure. so that you do it like this, or of course out in front. There's several different ways you can do it, but this was the final pattern that we're going to use on it. And so far it's done well and sold well. People like it. And thanks for listening to my story.
And what a good one it was.